Welcome to Learn English Podcast every day. Your daily dose of fun, practical, and easy to understand English, anytime, anywhere. Whether you're on the bus, cooking dinner, or taking a break, we've got you covered. This channel helps you improve your speaking and listening. So hit that subscribe button bell and start your journey to confident English, one day at a time. Let's get started.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at something really important. Malignant pleural mesothelioma, MPM for short.
Right. It's a particularly aggressive cancer, and historically, treatment options have been, well, quite limited.
Exactly. But there's some genuinely exciting science happening now. We're going to unpack some recent breakthroughs and look at how things like new drugs and even gut bacteria are connected.
Absolutely. The focus really has to be on how these discoveries impact patients living with MPM and what this all might mean for their future.
That's our mission today. We'll dig into new treatments, that gut microbiome link you mentioned, maybe even diet, and of course, what causes MPM in the first place. We know you want clear info, so let's jump right in.
Sounds good. For anyone facing this diagnosis or supporting someone who is, advancements like these can offer some much-needed hope. There are a couple of really compelling areas to talk about.
Okay, let's start with the big one, this new treatment trial, Atomic Meso. What was this study about, and why is it potentially such a big deal, especially for patients who felt like they were running out of options?
Right. So the Atomic Meso trial was a large phase 3 clinical study. That's kind of the final stage before seeking approval, testing in a lot of patients.
Okay.
They were looking specifically at malignant pleural mesothelioma, asking, if we add this new drug, ADI-PEG-20, to standard chemotherapy, does it improve things?
And did it? I know with MPM, any improvement in survival time is crucial for patients and their families.
It did show an improvement. The median survival went up by 1.6 months for those getting ADI-PEG-20 plus chemo.
Okay, 1.6 months.
Which, might not sound enormous on its own, but the really striking part was the survival at 36 months, 3 years out.
Oh, okay. What happened there?
The number of patients alive at that 3-year mark was 4 times higher in the group that got ADI-PEG-20 compared to the placebo plus chemo group.
4 times. Wow.
Yeah. And you have to remember, the historical 5-year survival for MPM is really low, like maybe 5 to 10%. So quadrupling survival at 3 years, that's significant.
That really puts it in perspective. 4 times as many people surviving at 3 years. So how does this ADI-PEG-20 actually work? What's the science behind it?
It's actually quite clever. It targets a specific metabolic sort of vulnerability in a lot of mesothelioma cells.
A vulnerability?
Yes. It works by getting rid of an amino acid called arginine in the bloodstream. Arginine is like a food source, a building block that cells need to grow.
Okay.
Now, what's interesting is that many, perhaps most, MPM cells are missing a key protein, an enzyme called ASS1.
ASS1.
And ASS1 is what normal cells use to make their own arginine. So because these MPM cells can't make it themselves, they absolutely depend on getting arginine from outside, from the bloodstream.
Ah, I see. So they need to import it.
Exactly. And ADI-PEG-20 basically removes that external supply. It depletes the arginine in the blood, effectively starving those specific tumor cells that can't make their own.
So it's like cutting off their fuel line, hitting them right where you're weak because they lack that ASS1 protein. That makes sense.
Precisely. It's a targeted metabolic attack.
We have a story here about a patient, Mick. His experience seems to really highlight the potential here. Can you tell us a bit about him?
Mick's story is really powerful. He was diagnosed back in 2018, likely due to asbestos exposure from work years ago, which is common.
Right.
And his initial prognosis was really grim. Doctors thought maybe 4 months.
Oh, wow.
But he enrolled in the Atomic Meso trial. He got the ADI-PEG-20 along with chemotherapy for about 2 years. And remarkably, here we are 5 years later, and Mick is still alive.
5 years after a 4-month prognosis. That's incredible.
It really is. And he mentioned that the ADI-PEG-20 treatment itself had, for him, minimal side effects. He did later have immunotherapy when the cancer came back, and he found that had more side effects for him.
So potential for significant life extension, possibly with decent quality of life during that treatment, that's huge.
It absolutely offers that potential, yes. His story really underscores that.
And is the research still going on? Are scientists figuring out, why it works so well for some people like Mick and maybe not as well for others? Could it be used elsewhere?
Yes. Definitely. That's a key focus now, understanding who benefits most from ADI-PEG20. If we can identify biomarkers or other factors, we could potentially select patients more effectively, maybe even find ways to help more patients respond.
Makes sense.
And yes, this whole idea of targeting arginine dependence isn't unique just to mesothelioma. ADI-PEG20 is also being looked at in other cancers that often lack AS1 and rely on external arginine, like certain types of sarcoma and glioblastoma, the brain cancer.
Interesting. So for you listening, if MPM is something impacting your life, this atomic meso trial and ADI-PEG20 represent a genuinely significant step, more than just a small step, potentially life-changing for some.
Exactly. It brings a very real sense of hope and the possibility of more time and better quality time for people facing this really tough disease.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. There's another fascinating area emerging, looking at something inside us, our gut bacteria, and how that might affect treatment success, specifically with immunotherapy in patients whose mesothelioma has come back. That feels less intuitive, maybe.
It does seem less obvious at first glance, but it's actually a really hot area in cancer research overall. This study looked at patients with relapsed mesothelioma who were getting immunotherapy, specifically two drugs, atezolizumab and bevacizumab.
Okay, these are drugs that help the immune system fight cancer.
Right, but we know immunotherapy doesn't work for everyone or doesn't work as well for some.
Yeah.
So the researchers were asking why. Could the gut microbiome, the bacteria living in our gut, play a role?
And what did they find when they looked at the patient's gut bacteria? Were there specific bugs, so to speak, that seemed important?
They found a pretty clear link. What's really fascinating is the presence or absence of certain bacteria was associated with how well the patients did.
Which ones?
Specifically, having bacteria from the Prevotella group, the Eubacterium ventriosum group, and also Bifidobacterium. These were linked to having more anti-cancer immune cells actually inside the mesothelioma tumors.
Wow. So the bacteria in the gut were somehow related to the immune cells at the site of the cancer.
That's what it looks like.
Ugh.
And crucially, patients with more of these specific bacteria generally had a better response to that atezolizumab and bevacizumab immunotherapy.
So it's suggesting that this whole ecosystem inside us, our microbiome, might actually be like priming our immune system, making it more ready or able to respond effectively when the immunotherapy drug comes along.
That's a great way to put it. It strongly suggests our gut microbes are influencing our systemic immune response in a way that impacts cancer treatment success. It's quite profound, really.
It really is, which immediately makes you wonder, okay, if the right bacteria help, can we change our gut bacteria to improve the chances of immunotherapy working? And that brings us to diet, I suppose.
Exactly. That's the exciting implication here. The researchers themselves suggested that yes, potentially modifying the gut microbiome could enhance immunotherapy response.
Wow.
Well, one of the main ways we know we can influence our gut microbiome composition is through diet. Particularly increasing dietary fiber seems to be key.
Fiber, like from fruits, vegetables, whole grains.
Precisely. Fiber basically feeds many of the beneficial bacteria in our gut, helping them thrive.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, anyone considering dietary changes, especially during cancer treatment, absolutely needs to discuss it with their doctor or dietitian first.
Of course. Very important.
But it opens this really interesting possibility using something relatively accessible, like dietary adjustments, to potentially support the effectiveness of a sophisticated treatment like immunotherapy.
It feels empowering somehow, doesn't it? That something you have a degree of control over, like what you eat, might play a part. Is this still being actively studied? Are they looking deeper into this connection?
Oh yes, absolutely. The researchers mention ongoing work analyzing data from other related trials, the MIST trials, to really flesh out this connection.
MIST trials.
Yes. Other studies looking at mesothelioma treatments. They want to get a much fuller picture of how the microbiome interacts with immunotherapy. The end goal, really, is moving towards more personalized treatment plans.
So taking into account not just the tumor, but also the patient's individual gut bacteria profile when deciding on treatment.
Potentially, yes. That seems to be where the research is heading.
So we're seeing these two really interesting threads now targeting the cancer's metabolism directly with something like ADI-PEG20, and also looking at how to optimize the patient's own internal environment, like their gut microbiome, to help treatments like immunotherapy work better.
That sums it up very well. It's a move towards a more holistic, or at least a more integrated and personalized view of tackling mesothelioma.
Now, just to make sure we cover all bases, let's quickly touch on something that's much more established. What is mesothelioma actually linked to? It's crucial people understand the primary cause.
Yes. The link is incredibly clear and well established. Mesothelioma is overwhelmingly caused by exposure to asbestos.
Asbestos, the industrial material.
Exactly. It was used everywhere for its fire-resistant insulating properties for decades. But when those tiny asbestos fibers get inhaled, they can lodge in the lining of the lungs, the pleura, and over many years, sometimes decades later, they can trigger the development of mesothelioma. It's now outlawed or heavily restricted in many places because of this risk.
And the link is very direct, right? Something like 80% of cases.
Yes, that's the commonly cited figure. Around 80% of mesothelioma cases can be traced back to known asbestos exposure, very often in the workplace, construction, shipbuilding, insulation work, and so on. It really highlights the occupational nature of this disease for so many people.
Okay, so putting it all together now, this new metabolic therapy, ADI-PEG20, and this growing understanding of the gut microbiome's role in immunotherapy response. What's the sort of the bigger picture emerging for mesothelioma treatment?
The big picture is definitely one of progress and hope, moving towards much more tailored approaches. Yeah. We're seeing these novel therapies, like ADI-PEG20, that hit the cancer's specific weaknesses. Right. And at the same time, we're realizing just how much the patient's own biology, right down to the microbes in their gut, can influence how well other key treatments, like immunotherapy, work. It suggests a future where treatment plans are much more personalized.
Taking into account both the specifics of the tumor and the specifics of the patient's own body.
Exactly. Their metabolism, their microbiome, alongside the genetics of the tumor itself.
It's vital to remember, though, as encouraging as all this is, we're not talking about a cure for mesothelioma just yet, are we?
No, that's a very important point. We don't have a definitive cure currently. The focus of these advancements right now is really on extending survival, significantly and crucially improving the quality of life for patients living with the disease. These breakthroughs are major steps towards those goals.
Okay, so let's recap the key takeaways for everyone listening. We've got the Atomic Meso trial showing significant survival improvements with ADI-PEG20 added to chemotherapy. Real hope there.
Yes.
And then this fascinating link between specific gut bacteria, Prevotella, Eubacterium, Bifidobacterium, and better response to immunotherapy in relapsed patients, hinting at the potential role of diet, especially fiber.
That's right, a really exciting avenue.
And underpinning it all, the established strong link between mesothelioma and exposure to asbestos, often from work decades ago.
Correct. That remains the fundamental cause we need to remember. These are all really dynamic areas of research, constantly evolving.
They really are. And it leaves you with a final thought, doesn't it? This idea of understanding and maybe even influencing our own internal ecosystem, our microbiome. Could that be one of the next big frontiers in cancer treatment? Not just for mesothelioma, but maybe more broadly. Something definitely worth watching. Thank you for sharing all this insight today.
My pleasure. It's important to keep track of these developments.